Welcome to our next podcast, our Shifted Ed podcast series. It's this ongoing series where we're talking with educators about how they're adjusting to the pandemic and kind of the shift in education, how things have changed so much over the past 9 months. And today I've got a great, tag team here with me today. I have two teachers from Vanguard who teach Cycle 1 together, team teaching. And we're going to talk to them a little bit today about how things started off in March, where things went to, what they're up to now, how they're keeping their kids engaged and exciting. So there'll be lots of good conversation. So I will introduce Stephanie and Alexi, who are two teachers at Vanguard, Cycle 1, as I said. And my first question to you guys is I know that you're a semi-private school and you're not really attached to a school board per se, but you are a part of our lovely Anglophone community. And I'd love it if you guys could just kind of situate us, give us a little idea of what your clientele is and where you're at and, the levels, what you teach and all of that stuff.
So Vanguard School it's a semi-private school, just as you said, where it's all students who have learning difficulties. So even though we're located in Saint Laurent, we have students that come from all over the greater Montreal area and are bussed in from pretty far to go to Vanguard. And
what you talk about special needs or students with learning difficulties. Could you tell us a little bit, like, what's the range of this? What are we talking about? Like, what are some of the learning difficulties that the students come to you guys with?
So you just heard Stephanie. I'm Alexi. Our school caters to students who have all forms of DISs, so dyslexia, dyscalculia, even dysphagia. We'll have dysgraphia. We have also ADHD, right attention deficit, and we have some cases of higher functioning autism spectrum.
We also have students with central auditory processing disorder.
Speech, language. And normally most of our students will have more than one diagnosis. So we'll have students who have dyslexia and also ADHD. So every single student has an IEP, an individualized education plan.
Wow, that's a lot to handle. So when you're talking about having diversity in the teaching, you guys are really practicing this in real time continuously every single day because you have such an array of students in front of you.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of differentiation on a day-to-day basis, but our class sizes are also smaller to accommodate this. So most of our classes will have a maximum of 17 students in order to make it so that we can help them all.
Right, and typical grade 7 classes will have 35 to 40 students in the private
in the public sector.
Huge class sizes. So it's good that they are smaller. So let's keep the clients or the students in mind that you guys are dealing with. What was the reaction when in spring, when everything shut down, when the COVID just started coming up and they said, okay, we're shutting schools down? I imagine that must have been a huge shock for your students. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that. And also, what was the reaction? How did they handle it? And
it was really funny because at the first week back from March break, Alexa and I were teaching, and we're if we hear one more conversation about COVID,
oh, it was terrible.
We're going to give you detention.
Because all of the students had already heard from their parents, and they were all, oh my gosh, there's this big new illness, and it's called COVID, and we just couldn't get through a lesson without students bringing it up. And I mean, we were fed up hearing about it, and I mean, we addressed it right from what we had heard about, COVID. I mean, in the early on,
and
part of it.
And a lot of our students have, pretty severe anxiety. And so we don't want them to just kind of spiral out of control during school time. So we're let's kind of get back to the lesson.
And so we were trying to contain it. But in containing it, we were we can't talk about this. It's really not that big a deal, guys. And then it was a very big deal. So we apologized to them when we went back online. When everyone went back online, we were so you were right. and we were wrong. This is a very big deal, and you were right to, and so then we talked about all the things that we could do to make things go a little bit more smoothly, and the students were very receptive to it, but it was very funny because we had that "I told you so" miss moment. So it was we earned it.
Yeah, that's. I'm sure that many students felt the exact same way. Just that anxiety and the unsureness of going online. What does that mean? So let's start there. So schools shut down, and how did your school respond? Like, what was your plan when the initial COVID started in and you guys were all at home? And like, what was the plan that your school had organized to kind of keep, the learning going and keeping the kids kind of spirits up and stuff? So tell us a little bit about that plan that you guys had.
Well, we were very lucky because our school is already 1-to-1. So every student has a laptop. Unfortunately, because of how quickly things were going, a lot of students left their laptops at school. But our school is really quick to create a time and to have shifts in order for students to come and pick up the materials that they would need for online learning. Their laptops were allowed to be brought home. Their, all of their binders and their notes.
Their textbooks.
And I really liked Steph can talk about how the school did that in terms of
so
how.
I actually went to volunteer, and so I don't have any pre-existing conditions, and so I'm pretty healthy. So it was all on a volunteer basis. The teachers went into school with, the mask, the gloves, and all families that needed their material sent an email, and they were given a slot to come by. And they came into the school in their car. They were seated in their car with a piece of paper with their name on it.
They did like a drive-through, basically.
They popped the trunk. We put the laptop and other school materials in, closed the trunk. All right, off you go. And so because we already had all of that set up, like Google Classroom and all of this, it was pretty smooth, the transition from online.
I'm very pleased with how Vanguard handled it. Of course, there was going to be a little bit of up in the air, questions, getting everyone on the same page is difficult, but in general, we were able to have the students with their materials, with their laptops, able to do online classes fairly quickly. And they also made it so that the students, for the first chunk, when we didn't know when we were going to go back to school, where it only seemed like we were going to be gone and online a short amount of time, we created a schedule for the students where they didn't have too much screen time during the day. It wasn't a full day of classes. I think it was 4 hours total of classes. And so that it wouldn't be overwhelming, because we kept in mind, like, it is very stressful. We have all these cases of anxiety. We have, we didn't know what we were dealing with. And it went really well.
Just before that too, because we also, as a semi-private school, we also follow like all of the government recommendations. And so when online school wasn't it wasn't mandatory for a certain period. So we were just sending work and reviewing things with the students as well. And that was all on their own. So we had a nice 2-3 week kind of grace period for the students. And then after 3 weeks, it became really mandatory with schedules.
But what I was most impressed by was that even though it was kind of optional school during that grace period, really, we had full classes. Like, the students came online, followed the schedule, were really present, were doing their work as best as they could.
Some students just came in to see us and, we miss you, we miss being at school, we miss seeing our friends.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys had a plan that was quite adaptive and worked out quite well. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that? Like, what were some of your big successes that you guys found in that original time when we were all online? And it kind of felt like we were all driving blind, right? You're going down a highway at 1,000,000 miles an hour and you can't see anything and you hope you stay on the road. What were your successes during that time that you guys felt as two educators? What did you guys find worked really well online?
Well, one of the things that I found worked really well was that our school was already, we already had Google Classroom. So all of the students were familiar with Google Classroom, and we were able to, give them their assignments online. We already did a lot of online work even within the classroom, so that helped the transition go more smoothly.
Right, just all of their tools that they use every day in class, right? Read and write. So the programs that read
That are text to speech.
right, they have that on their computer with their Vanguard usernames. In terms of tools as well, the other one too that I'm forgetting. WordQ,
Yeah.
Read and Write, and
They
word
had on their
prediction.
computers. They had their word prediction software. So since they were already used to using those things pretty independently in the classroom, it made it a little bit easier. We also have in terms of the English sector at Vanguard, I can't necessarily speak for the other sectors, right? I really like a lot of people, if they were uncomfortable with the technology, were not afraid to ask other teachers for help with the technology. So, I mean, even if we were having a difficult time, we didn't feel completely stuck because we could just like call up a coworker, right, a colleague of ours, a team member of ours, and ask them those questions relatively
Judgment free.
Judgment free, exactly. I asked Stephanie all the time for help with technology. And she was answering questions for other teachers, and I was answering questions for other teachers. It was really, that was very nice, I found.
And I mean, we're pretty lucky to be like in the fairly younger generations of teachers that are very comfortable with technology. And so I feel like it wasn't a huge adjustment for us in terms of doing everything online. I mean, yes, teaching online and teaching in person is completely different. But in terms of like using the technology as a teaching tool, wasn't too much of a jump.
And I would say that the administration was very supportive of us too, and really did try to not overwhelm us with all of they understood that there was just change after change after change, and they tried to make that as easy for us as possible, which we really appreciated as well.
The teachers seem to be adapting well. Let's flip it a bit. We call our students nowadays digital natives, right? Or they have this capacity to handle. Do you guys agree with that statement? Do you think that students have a certain capacity that, whatever you throw at them digitally, they'll figure it out?
I mean, for certain things, right? We notice that students, I mean, if you give them social media, very comfortable. In terms of certain games, really comfortable. But in terms of working tools, we notice that students have a lot of difficulty using technology independently. We've noticed that often they have to be taught like really direct instructions on, how to open up, how to open up documents, how to attach documents, how to attach pictures,
how to turn in work, how to take notes on the computer. One of the things that we find the most difficult is if they're using their computers during class time, knowing not to be on other tabs that are going to distract them, like very basic things like this that need to be taught. And even typing skills, right? Because it's not necessarily taught outright to them. It's assumed that they'll know how to do that, and then they'll be very slow typers, which makes the rest of the work very slow.
Right, because even if they're natives on their phones or their iPads, right, the typing skills don't necessarily convert to
transfer
to a keyboard.
Sounds like there were a lot of successes, but what were some of your really big challenges as a staff, as a school, when you guys came back in September? School starting up, the kids are coming back. How challenging was that? And what were some of the big things that you guys had to figure out as a school, as a staff, as a cycle? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Just the beginning, the coming back to school and all the uncertainty, and is it going to be safe? And are we going to be able to just have the physical distancing? And are we going to be able to have all of the things, right? When we went back to school in August, it was just really, really scary, kind of.
I was going to say there was a big climate of fear because, I mean, the uncertainty was through the roof. And also, I mean, at least for the grade 7 team, right, we'd never met the students. All the teachers hadn't met their groups. And a big part of what made online learning so successful in March was the fact that we already had a rapport in person with our students. And we were nervous that we were going to have to make a rapport with them online, which is a completely different skill compared to doing it in person.
I mean, keeping students engaged on the computer is so much harder than it is to do face-to-face, right? As much as I team teach with Alexi, I also teach science, and we teach robotics, and we have other courses like that. And the hands-on courses, it just takes so much time and energy to transfer those classes to like a way that it would work easily online.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of teachers, right, having their whole curriculum kind of have to be turned around and turned over on its head and rethought and redesigned also added to teacher stress of going back in September.
The other thing that comes into play is that not necessarily all the students came back, right? There were a lot of students who had doctor's notes, who could do learning, like hybrid learning, right? Or like learning, not hybrid learning, but learning from home, which kind of made it hybrid learning for teachers, because the way that we did it was we have a camera in each of the classes that's set up for those 1 or 2 students that are learning from home for the year. So we have to teach not only to the students in front of us, but also to the student who is at home. And the fear is that what we're going to do in the class is going to be lost on the student who is at home, who can't necessarily get the full experience. So that was another stressor, like, and to not forget about them, right? Because they're just as important as their peers, but it's so hard. So
it just really makes teachers have to think about so many more things to an already kind of exhausting task.
Yeah, our brains are being pulled in a million different directions, and with this, I mean, it's no secret that teachers are already doing so many other jobs within the classroom that, you know, isn't just teaching, right? Making sure that students, you know, mental health is good, that they're socializing well, that they're you know, taken care of, that they're following the material, and then on top of it, to have to keep all of these other things on our minds as well, and then making sure that they're wearing their masks, making sure that everyone is sanitizing their hands. It was just
that they're standing 1 meter apart or 2 meters apart, depending on.
I had to start writing down lists for myself because I just couldn't keep everything in my head because there was just so much.
It was just so exhausting too. Like, teachers are very tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same can be said about the administration. They're like, they look so tired too, and they're trying their hardest to make it so that they can support us. And we see that, but it's just, we're all very tired. But the students are so kind and they see it. And I mean, one good example is because of the bubble system that was put in place, right? The students can't go into each other's classrooms.
Right.
And so in our school, in the English high school, we don't have detention anymore because we like physically can't have a space for detention because we'll have all these students coming from all these different classes, which is a big no-no. And so basically at the beginning of the year, we explained this to the students, like, you're going to have to be the wonderful students that we know that you are. And I mean, honestly, they really rose to the occasion and they've been wonderful. And there really hasn't been a need for detention. Of course, you're going to get the 1 or 2 who are going to be like, oh, what are you going to do, miss? Put me in detention, right? And you know, but I remember when one student said that to me and I said, or you could just be a decent human being. And they were like, yeah. And that was it. And so the students also recognize that we're having a hard time and they are trying to help us as well because they see how much we're trying to help them.
And I mean, they really have a horrible time learning online on their own.
They hated it. And so like, it's funny because it's the cool thing to say, like, oh yeah, I want to go home and learn at home and everything. But really what we found is when it was coming up again in September, like, oh, are we going to have to close the schools back down? The students were like, oh no, I really hope not. And so they really don't take it for granted, kind of the way that they might have in past years. And so it's been an interesting change in dynamic.
Oh, so many things have changed though. Like I see that as well. Like my kids, you know, were just didn't want to stay home anymore, you know, like, but before the pandemic, oh, I really don't want to go to school today. And now school is the place to be, which is pretty outstanding of that shift that's going on just inside the kids themselves. And I really like what you guys said about that connection with your students, of the worry that there would be when you got your new students for the new school year, that relationship would be different, you know, it wouldn't be there if they were online. What were some of the things that you guys did to create or establish that relationship in September with the students that were online?
Well, I mean, we were very fortunate this year in the fact that most students, I mean, all of them came back in September. We didn't have any students from the get go that were online. So we really spent a lot of the time in the beginning just kind of getting to know the student, but also like teaching them how all the online tools work just in case we were going to be online.
Right.
So that we would be able to continue to have, right? So this is how your camera works. This is how this works. This is, netiquette, how to behave online. So really just going through all of the motions, expecting kind of, well, if school closes down tomorrow, right? At least we're able to connect with all of our students and be able to reach out to them.
I know that Stephanie and I, especially with the 7th graders, really made a big effort at the beginning of the year. I mean, we always do, but especially at the beginning of this year to really get to know the students, but also mention many times how much we care about them and,
right.
How wonderful they are and just really the positivity so that they would be, they are wonderful, but so that they would already have that rapport with us when, or if we would go back online. And even in the case, I know Stephanie has, she teaches Sec 3 science class, and she already has a rapport with that group because we teach grade 7, or Sec 1. And so
it made it much easier to go online and just kind of check in with those students. Another thing that we do too.
Well, because you have that one student who started from the get-go who was online, the rapport was already there. We were very lucky. I don't know if it's the same could be said for other teachers. I don't know what I would do. I think it would be very difficult. I don't know what I would do. I haven't been placed in that position, and I've had to do a lot of juggling already to figure out these things. But it's been very much a touch and go in terms of this year.
Are you guys ready to go online if that situation presents itself? How ready do you guys feel of going completely online at this point in time?
So as I said before, right, we have some students that are in the class that are online. So most of the work that we do is basically all on Google Classroom every single day. Students are absent because it's happening more and more, right? Students are getting tested, they're missing school. We don't want to make those students feel, uncomfortable or like they're missing out. And so everything is posted. They can have access to all of it. We even had a practice day where everybody stayed home.
Our school did a practice day where we had a PED day that was one of the PED days that was mandated by the government. We used it in this way.
So we had there was two. Well, we had a lot of things.
So
the one that we all the students stayed home and all the teachers stayed home, and we did pretend it's a pandemic day. Follow your regular schedule. Everybody does at-home learning, and then the next day was really great because you were having trouble connecting online. Okay, did you try this? Did you try that? And so just already troubleshooting all of the issues that people were having the next day because we were able to do that with the students. That was fantastic.
I think that we would be ready to do it again if we had to. Is it our first choice? No, there's really something to be said about classroom learning, like being in person. It really makes a big difference.
People are always saying, yes, teachers are going to be replaced by robots. And I think this whole pandemic has really just kind of
shown that is not true.
Right. So I want to thank you guys first off just for taking some time with me and chatting like this. I think your words are really inspiring and soothing because there is a lot of stress out there amongst educators of this winter and before spring and what's going to happen, who knows. And my final question to you guys is we're in this flux right now where change is being pushed on us if we're ready for it or not. It's probably the biggest transformation education will go through in our lifetime anyway. Where do you see it going? Or where would you like to see it going? How could we seize this opportunity that we have in front of us to make our educational system that much better?
So for the first part, what I think is that it's really forcing students to be much more independent in their learning.
Completely agree.
And students have a really hard time with that, right? Whereas in the class, right, they're just kind of used to having the teacher there present, and asking their questions and getting the help immediately. right now we're kind of working on telling the students, okay, well, what if we're not there? What else can you do? And so we're spending a lot of time kind of modeling other strategies to the students and just kind of getting them to be more independent in their learning. YouTube, Google it, ask your friends, FaceTime your buddies and ask them for help with this assignment.
And this is a really big shift from, here's this worksheet, do this worksheet, kind of spoon feeding that has happened in the past. Like, I'm not saying it happens today, but it's really been kind of shocking to see how difficult it is for students to be, independent learners. But I mean, it makes sense developmentally that it would be difficult, especially since we're seeing Sec 1 students. But I've been hearing the same from teachers of the older grades as well.
And I mean, if I were to do online schooling, like even in CEGEP or university, I mean, I know that I wouldn't have been the model student either. I would have had a really hard time learning online.
I wouldn't have. I have an academic brain. Like I never really struggled in school, and you did, and so it kind of shows in terms of our teaching styles as well. But yeah, it's a massive, massive shift. And I mean, I think that is the thing that I agree. I think that's the thing that I'm the most happy about, is really working on making sure that students are really ready to be autonomous and to work on modeling those skills for them.
But that's really difficult for students as well.
It is. And I like that they're also where they're getting outright strategies and learning opportunities for, independent learning, but also to interact with their technology, especially like we were talking about earlier, for academic purposes, because they're excellent on their phones and their iPads, like you said. But when it comes to doing an assignment, like it is a big shift. And I mean, I just think about when I was a student, and it was rare for anyone to have a computer. Like, they'd have one computer in their house, and now it's like everyone has a computer at their fingertips. So it's we went from talking about digital citizenship to now they really have to interact with it in a very interesting way. Netiquette, like you were saying, very important during the online learning. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think as teachers, that was a big thing that we noticed.
No, I agree with you guys. I totally get it. Teaching kids how to learn, and it's the skills, right? I mean, it's kind of what I've heard from educators too, is that we can kind of put content aside a little bit and focus on skill development in the kids. And that's really where you're going to get kids to become learners, right? Lifelong learners, or, learn to learn, however you want to phrase it. But it's that capacity that we're trying to now shift things over to more of a skill base where, get them to problem solve, get them to learn how to communicate, netiquette again, digital citizenship type of stuff. I really love that idea that we could kind of pause a little bit on the content that tends to just dominate and overwhelm, making kids want to learn.
You put that so well. That's exactly it. I loved your summary. Man, that's exactly it.
Teaching kids how to learn.
Skill-based learning.
Well, let's leave it there. It's on a good note. Again, Stephanie, Alexi, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and your thoughts with us today. It's been a real pleasure to just talk with you guys again. We haven't chatted in a long time. So thank you so much for jumping on and giving a bit of your time up to talk with us today. And I just want to thank you both. And we'll be hopefully seeing from you guys again soon, because I know we do a lot of professional development together, and I want to keep doing that. And I do want to come in and visit Vanguard eventually, maybe when the schools open up again. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Chris. See you soon.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Be well. Be safe.